Convicted felon Cain Burgess was granted a temporary release to visit his dying mother in the hospital. But when he arrived, it was already too late. She had passed away. Despite the grim news, Cain asked to see her body one final time. After a quiet, emotional moment of farewell, he took advantage of the situation, suddenly attacking and knocking out every officer who had escorted him. He made his escape through the back exit, disappearing into the city. Cain eventually ended up at a local bar. The bouncers tried to stop the rugged, dangerous-looking man, but after a quick and brutal beatdown, they were left sprawled on the ground. Calmly, Cain grabbed himself a beer, as if nothing had happened. Behind the counter, an attractive bartender took notice and complimented him. While Cain sat quietly, a group of local gangsters at the bar began talking about a friend of theirs who had his hand cut off by some lunatic. Apparently, a man named Toon had scared the attacker off. Cain found their version of the story funny, because he remembered it very differently. He told them the truth. When the so-called psycho showed up, a black drug dealer named Rook confronted him. Rook was the one who lost his hand on the spot. As for Toon, he didn't scare anyone. He ran off as soon as trouble started, so fast that his shoes were practically flying off. In fact, it was Cain who had killed Rook. And to make his point, Cain pulled out a bag and revealed its contents. Rook's severed hand. Cain made it clear he wasn't there for the crew. Cain locked the bar doors and warned everyone to stay put. One man tried to get brave, only to get shot in the leg. As he screamed in pain, Cain kicked him in the face to shut him up. Toon still couldn't believe Cain had taken down Rook until he saw the hand for himself. Cain then forced Hyde, Lincoln's right-hand man, to call the boss and summon him to the bar. It was time for Lincoln's crew to find out where Cain got all his scars and why he came back. The story began 7 years earlier. That time, Cain had approached Lincoln with a business idea. He wanted to open a boxing gym but didn't have the funds. Lincoln, a loan shark, had one hard rule: never lend money to family, especially not to Cain, who had already disappointed him. Cain had been paid to throw a fight, but instead knocked out his opponent, costing Lincoln's crew a huge sum. Still, Lincoln offered him a second chance. There was a job, and if Cain did it, he'd get the money. Cain wanted to stay away from crime, but with no other options, he agreed. The task was simple, or so he thought. A woman named Mabel was going to pick up a package at her office. Cain was to follow her, take the package, and if she resisted, use force. That decision ruined his life. The job went wrong. Mabel chased Cain down the street, refusing to let go. While crossing the road, she was struck by a car and killed. Cain was caught on the spot and arrested. That incident made him indirectly responsible for the death of a mother of 3. During interrogation, a detective told Cain that Mabel wasn't just a random victim. She was connected to Lincoln. She was a relative of one of his debtors. Lincoln had a method: offer desperate people a way out, then use family members to settle debts. A simple delivery, a quick job. But when it ended in tragedy, Lincoln gained leverage over yet another broken family. Cain was thrown into one of England's most feared prisons, nicknamed the Meat Grinder. Surrounded by murderers and career criminals, Cain tried to mind his own business. But within days, a massive inmate picked a fight with him in the showers. Relying on his boxing skills, Cain took him down, but then someone stabbed him in the ribs. A brawl broke out, and Cain was pinned down. An inmate smashed his mouth against a stair step and stomped on the back of his head. Cain lost his front teeth. At the prison hospital, they gave him metal replacements. That new, cold smile became part of his legend. And in a strange way, Cain liked it. It made him look even more terrifying. His mother visited him and was heartbroken. She had hoped prison would teach him a lesson, but it only hardened him. She had asked Lincoln for help hiring a lawyer, but he refused. Cain never even got a visit from his older brother. With no one to rely on, Cain had to survive alone. One question haunted him: why were so many inmates targeting him? The answer came one day when an opponent slipped up and revealed the truth. Lincoln had put a bounty on his head, £20,000 to whoever could kill Cain. It was all a twisted game, orchestrated by his own blood. From that moment on, Cain was fighting for survival. One day, someone threw boiling water in his face. It scarred him badly, but somehow made him look even more rugged. He spent 5 weeks in solitary and got another 2 years added to his sentence. He kept training, kept fighting, and over time, stopped feeling pain at all. He was stabbed, beaten by guards, and slammed with batons, but nothing could break him. Cain accumulated more scars, more injuries. One day, in a blind rage, he killed another inmate and earned another year behind bars. He spent more time in the hole. His sentence was supposed to be 5 years. It ballooned to 20. He became a ghost, relentless and unforgiving. Only his mother continued to visit. But eventually, she was diagnosed with cancer. She died loving Lincoln, never knowing the full extent of her oldest son's cruelty. Cain never told her the truth. But when she passed, there was nothing holding him back anymore. He escaped during a hospital transfer, took down the guards in an elevator, broke out of his cuffs, and even mugged a man who happened to walk into the restroom. All this led to the bar, where Cain now confronted Hyde and waited for Lincoln. Eventually, Lincoln arrived with his security. He acted warm and welcoming, pretending to be thrilled to see his little brother. He tried to talk about family and moving on, but Cain wasn't fooled. He pointed his sawed-off shotgun straight at Hyde's head and warned everyone to back off. The man Cain had shot in the leg was bleeding out, but the killer didn't care. He wasn't the same Cain who went into prison. He had become something else entirely. And it wasn't the prison that did it. It was Lincoln. Lincoln tried to explain himself. He claimed he'd been told Cain was going to snitch, and that the bounty was to protect their crew. Cain didn't care. That crooked cop? Already taken care of. Cain had found him, fought him, and killed him. No cuffs this time. No rules. Lincoln offered a fresh start. He said they could forget the past and move forward. But Cain wasn't interested. What about the people Lincoln destroyed? The families he crushed? To Lincoln, they were nobodies. Just collateral damage. Cain snapped. Lincoln's cold words about those losers sent him over the edge. Cain pulled the trigger and blew Hyde's head off. Lincoln had cared more for that thug than his own brother. Cain wasn't finished. He had already paid a visit to Lincoln's accountant, who was shocked by how much Cain had changed. The man tried to fight back, but Cain disarmed him and struck a deal: help him drain Lincoln's accounts. Leave him with just 1,500 pounds. The rest? It would go to the people Lincoln had ruined. Each victim received 15,000 pounds. A small fortune for working-class families. Days earlier, Cain had promised the detective he would give up his brother, if only he could see his mother one last time. Now, with everyone else free to leave the bar, Cain told them to go. All except Lincoln. Toon tried to sneak out too, but Cain made him sit down and shut up. Lincoln warned Cain he only had 2 shells in his shotgun. After that, he'd be torn to pieces. The bartender suddenly attacked Cain, smashing a bottle over his head. Chaos broke loose. Cain managed to shoot one thug before the others attacked, hurling bottles and grabbing bats. The bartender handed out weapons to the gang, but Cain didn't flinch. This was just another prison brawl to him. Toon ran, then returned with a gun, but ended up shooting one of his own by mistake. Cain took the weapon and dropped several more enemies that he was stabbed in the side again. He didn't even blink. He bit into a man's neck, ripping off a chunk of flesh. Another man charged with a crowbar. Cain shattered his arm and used the same crowbar to crush the man's face. Only Lincoln and the bartender were left. She stood frozen in horror at the bloodbath. Cain sat down, spit out another tooth, and stared down his brother. Lincoln, trembling, pointed the shotgun at Cain, only to find it empty. He wasn't used to doing his own dirty work. The bartender handed Lincoln a knife, but Cain quickly turned it against him. He slashed open Lincoln's stomach, finally ending the nightmare. Then, calmly, Cain apologized to the bartender for the mess and sat on a bench. He smiled. Each ruined family now had money in their account. Cain's years of pain and suffering hadn't been for nothing. He couldn't undo what he'd become, but he could give others a second chance, and with that, the film ends.